Clean version.
Monkeyboy's YouTube channel is a channel than which none greater could be conceived, and so you should subscribe and watch all of his content post haste.
So Scrimba, hey man, thanks for coming up. I'm gonna let Monkey on, bro. I appreciate you coming up, bro.
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks, Scrimba. I appreciate it, man.
Yep, no problem.
Okay, so Matt, this is Monkey Boy. He's a really prominent figure on TikTok, big following. Also an atheist. He's also respectful. He's not going to cut you off, not going to cut at you. But I would say one of the more higher tiers. Monkey Boy, welcome to the panel.
Hey, what's going on?
How are you doing?
I don't know if maybe you want to just talk about the argument you gave Scrimba, or if you want to go over another one, it's up to you. But I'm down to talk about any arguments you have for theism.
I can give another argument. The one I presented to him, atheists...
I mean, I'm fine with talking about the one... Sorry, go ahead.
They routinely ignore it. They don't deal with it. So
I mean, if you want, I
can... reputation.
Yeah, I mean, if you want, I could talk about that one that you laid out.
Okay, if it's up to you. I can present another argument based on the cosmological and using logic, or I can do this one. You pick.
I mean, it depends how much time I'm given. I guess we could go through them. I mean,
there's no one behind you. Hey, Monkey Boy, there's no one behind you in the prompt right now. Right now, you have the floor.
Okay, yeah. So I guess we can start with
doing my exercise. Sorry.
Oh, word. That's good. Yeah, I should get back to working out. But yeah, I mean, I'm down to talk about that argument you already gave, and then maybe ones after.
Sure. All right. So Jesus rose from the dead according to the eyewitness accounts. Okay, that's a premise.
Okay.
You want to deal with that one, or what?
If you could just lay out the whole argument.
What's basic is that we could do it different ways, but Jesus claimed to be God. Jesus prophesied he'd die and rise. Jesus did die and rise. Therefore, what he says is true. He claimed to be God, so therefore God exists. This is more abductive. Okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, first, it's not entirely clear what's meant by prophesize, but what I'm not... I mean, maybe we want to clarify that. By prophesize, do you just mean he's making, like, future tense claims, or...?
Yes, a future tense claim, an active voice. He made a certain proclamation about her, and he did.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't see why, if I thought the premises were true, would I think the conclusion is true, that God exists.
Because abductive. Because the historical evidence is different than a logical argument. It's because if you're going to base something on a historical event, then you can't go simply deductive. You have to go a little abductive, because the category of history is different than formal logic. So when you combine them, there has to be a little give and take.
Yeah, I mean, in any case, you could regiment abductive inferences as deductive ones, but I'm not really even asking for a deductive argument. What I'm not seeing is what I think if the premises were true, that God would exist.
Because he prophesied his resurrection, which is the demonstration that what he said was true. He rose from the dead. He also claimed to be God, therefore God exists.
Yeah, but that's what I'm not seeing the connection between. Because I can affirm the belief or the propositions that he rose from the dead and that he claimed to be God, right? And I can simply deny that he is God or God exists.
Okay, then you deny his resurrection. Okay, then I'd say, on what basis do you deny his resurrection?
No, I'm saying he did resurrect.
Okay, so then you believe he rose from the dead?
Yeah, I can grant
an argument.
Yeah, I can grant that.
Okay. So if he rose from the dead according to what he prophesied, right? After 3 days, right?
No, that's what I'm not seeing how you're getting to that.
Well, that's a prophecy in 1 John 2:19-21. He says, in Greek, agero, I will raise, active voice, future tense. He would perform the action of his own resurrection. I forget where it is when he says the sign of Jonah, as he was in the belly of the earth, 3 days and 3 nights. This is also a prophecy about his death. So he would die, 3 days, resurrect. He did. Okay.
Yeah, but it's not clear why then think that he is God or that God exists still.
Because he also claimed to perform the action of his own resurrection. That's what the future tense verb, agero, is. It's future active indicative first person singular in the Greek, which means he is the one performing the action of his own resurrection. Since he claimed to be God, and such powers are necessarily associated with God, then we say it's logical to conclude, yeah, he's God.
Yeah, I mean, so we have the datum that he resurrected and that he claimed to be God and the source of his own resurrection. Now, even if I granted he was the source of his own resurrection, what's not clear is why I think that that's in virtue of him being God, as opposed to not.
Because he performed the actions that God would perform.
Yeah, sure, but that doesn't offer good... I don't see why from that would I think that he's God.
It's like a necessary property to an essence. If it's necessary to it, that's the evidence if such a property exists, that the essence exists. If it's a necessary property of God's ability to prophesy his own resurrection, to perform his own resurrection, as is within the Christian worldview, a property of God's nature, then it would demonstrate that God's nature is within him, that he is God.
I mean, I'm not really understanding all of that, but what basically the point I'm making is that it's not like logically entailed from the fact that he's claimed that the sourcehood for his resurrection was God, that his like resurrection, the way he described it to unfold was like accurate, that that's any reason to think that it actually came from God.
Okay, I'm sorry, I got stuck on, you don't know what that means in reference to necessary properties to an essence. You're not familiar with that?
No, I'm not. That sounds like scholastic, and I find it that scholastic language is awfully not rigorous, and it's unclear what's being said. But in any case, I don't think we need to get into the theological metaphysics.
Well, hold on. Dismissing of a statement without knowing what it is not really a good argument on your part. Not a good action. So let me explain, because this is part of what I said. A necessary property is essential to the nature of something. For example, a circle. A necessary property, an essential property of a circle is roundness. You cannot have a circle without roundness, period. An accidental property of a circle would be its diameter. Different circles have different diameters, but all have the same arc, roundness, and the same definition of what it is. So whenever you have a property existing, an essential property, it's necessary that the essence is present with it. This is just basic stuff. You have circularity, and we're talking about a circle. It's necessary that circularity is there. If you have the property of Christ performing his own resurrection, this is an internal critique. If you want to go external, it's a different argument. In an internal critique, if you use the internal model, then he claimed to be God. The properties of God include his resurrecting of people. Therefore, the essential property of God, his ability, his being God, because his essential nature of his resurrection and prophesying his own resurrection, accomplishing his own resurrection, means then that God exists in him. Therefore, he's God. Therefore, God exists.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like this essence accident stuff is awfully akin to like synthetic analytic divide and analytic philosophy. But in any case, it might be true that it's a part of the essence of God that him incarnate will resurrect, right? He has that essential property. But what I'm saying is that property is not actually logically exhaustive of the range of explanations that could explain the fact that Jesus resurrected, to which when I analyze the possibility space of alternative explanations that are not friendly with that, right? What's unclear is why I would be motivated to believe that explanation as opposed to any other. And it's of course true that that's not the only logical possibility to which you can like make you can't just entail that from those
facts. A lot of mistakes. I'm walking around the neighborhood trying to remember what you said, but you appeal to emotionalism, subjectivism, and it doesn't convince you that's subjective. Everything is, you said it's not exhaustive, explanatory.
No, I'm talking about,
but you didn't.
Well, I wasn't talking about emotionism or subjectivism. What I'm saying is that the possibility space for explaining that fact is not logically, God does not logically exhaust that possibility space for explanation. So when I analyze the range of alternative explanation, it's not that datum doesn't it's not analytically true from the datum that the datum like in some way entails that God's the explanation.
Then please explain how Jesus.
I mean, explanations are synthetic anyways, causal explanations.
So explain how Jesus was able to prophesy his own resurrection and accomplish and be the one who resurrected himself. Explain how that's possible in a mere whatever worldview you have. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, to be clear, that's not really my claim, but in any case, sure, yeah, like an example would be that he's not actually predicting that, right? It's not true that he has that knowledge, but he is making those declarations and say like aliens that have the technological aptitude to produce those feats had heard that and like, produce those feats in light of deceiving humanity of Christianity. That would mirror the explanatory power of Christianity.
All right. So you just went from internal to external critique. Which one do you want to stick with?
No. Well, it is an internal critique insofar as what it's doing is it's basically capturing the same data by engineering a stalking explanation.
You're making lots of mistakes in logic. So if you're going to say it's an internal critique, don't introduce the idea of aliens. All right? That's external. So you have a worldview. You have a worldview with presuppositions. That's your worldview. So if you were to judge my worldview, so to speak, by your worldview, that's called an external critique. If you want to go internal critique, which is what the biblical evidence presents, because Jesus himself presents his own resurrection as the evidence you need. So I have to be consistent with my worldview. The presentation by Christ of his own resurrection is the evidence. Now, if you want to go internal, then be consistent, stay within Scripture. If you want to go external, I'm going to ask you to justify the universality of your external principles by which you judge mine. And you're going to have a problem doing that, because I know how to punch holes in all those arguments that anybody's ever given me for that. So if you want to stay on the internal, Jesus, I gave you the verse. It's called John 2:19-21, and I parsed the Greek word, agero, which is future active indicative, first person singular. And what that means is he is the one who says he will perform the action of his own resurrection. He did resurrect, therefore he performed the action of his own resurrection. The question then is, you have to give a better explanation that he did it himself on an internal critique. And as soon as you leave and go to an external, I'm going to jump all over that like a monkey in a cupcake. So which one do you want to go, internal, external?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things to respond to. The stalking horse explanation I've offered was actually, well, before I even talk about the internal external stuff, the very last comment you said is that you had to offer like an alternative explanation. I mean, it's obviously true that if I don't offer an alternative explanation and it's like the only explanation staring, that doesn't like offer epistemic merit to believe in it, right? That would just be the last man standing fallacy, which is when you claim you have epistemic reason in light of some explanation given it's the only explanation to consider. Now onto the external, internal stuff. Okay, onto the internal and external stuff. The stalking horse is actually internal because what it's doing is it's engineering an alternative explanation to mirror the same facts and accommodate them equally. And then, given you've already made your judgment as to what explanation you believe in, you would have to show me in virtue of what... You would basically have to show me in virtue of what rationalizes the explanation that you've already adopted, as opposed to mine.
No, it's called burden shifting. I've given you the premises, internal explanation. That means within what the scripture says. It's up to
what's
you
the burden
to
shifting?
Demonstrate that those... Now you want me. It's what all atheists do. I mean, I'm not being disrespectful to you. I'm just saying, I've done this so many times, that whenever I present an argument, almost always, what they want to do is shift the logical argument onto my plate. Say, here, you take care of this mess. But what I did initially is says, Jesus claimed to be God. Okay, John 8:24, John 8:58. He asserted his own resurrection ability in John 2:19-21. He prophesied it and accomplished it. Therefore, it's logical to conclude that he is who he said he was, God in flesh. It's simple. If you want to say you don't like it, well, you don't have to like it. But
I'm not understanding how my burden shifting.
Because you want me then to give an objective standard that by which I can then demonstrate that all these things are true. I don't have to demonstrate they're true. They're simply part of the Christian worldview. And that in that Christian worldview, an internal critique, I've given it to you. Now you need to deal with them. So deal with them. And you either say you can, and we discuss it, or you say you can't, and then the Christian worldview has not been defeated.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, the charge of me being, or me burden shifting is just wrong, because when you do a stalking horse objection, what you do is you basically accommodate the same facts with an alternative contrasted explanation, in which when they mirror like an evidential threat, what you want to show is, given you already lay commitment to this particular explanation, you would want to illustrate to me in virtue of what is it that you're not irrational in your decision making given the evidence is mirrored.
I would say, I would agree. If I understood you, not to be insulting, I hope I'm not, when I say I would agree that the evidence given, you have to make a decision on it, and you're drawing an improper conclusion based on the evidence. Jesus prophesied his own resurrection. He would, and he did. So what do you do with that?
I don't think you're quite understanding. I'm constructing a different explanation to explain the same facts. So those facts listed are already explained under the alternative
inside the Christian worldview then. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I finished. You're good.
Okay. Hope I don't step on you very often. I'm not trying to, but
Matt, how are you doing on time, Matt? Are you still good?
I'm good. I'm walking around the block, and I got a friend who's watching my wife. So I'm good. I'm old, man. I'm old. I'm 68, so I gotta be getting in shape here, to keep up with you young whippersnappers.
All right. Hey, monkey boy, is that all right if I drop you down? Thanks for coming up, man.
Oh.
Okay.
I think Matt was enjoying that. I think Matt was enjoying
Okay,
this.
all right. Actually, Matt, get monkey. I'm sorry, I'm an idiot. Keep going.
No, it's up to you, man.
No, go ahead, monkey boy. You got the floor, bro.
I think. Can I just say something real quick as well? I think.
Sure.
I think what this is really good is it's not really a debate. It's actually teaching and sharpening skills, even for the atheists. So I think this is really, really good.
Monkey, please continue.
Yeah. I have another argument that doesn't deal with biblical prophecy. I have another argument altogether. We could discuss if you want.
Well, I'm fine with staying on this argument, at least for now.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, so what happens is when two explanations equally accommodate the same facts, at least evidentially, you would want to appeal to maybe something like theoretical heuristics or types of theoretical virtues in which you can reasonably adjudicate between explanations, given they're evidentially, there's no evidential motivation to believe in one over another, right? And merely a judgment between two evidentially equal explanations would just result in being irrational if ceteris paribus, that's all that's being considered.
You said there's no necessary reason to believe one over the other, but that's not true. That's a subjective claim on your part. So how about this? Can you demonstrate Jesus did not rise from the dead with an alternative explanation?
No, I granted that. What I'm saying is that my alternative explanation...
Then, if you grant that he rose from the dead according to his prophecy, that he performed the action of his own resurrection, then would you grant then from that he is performing incredible actions?
Oh, well, I don't, in my explanation, it's not Jesus who's necessarily performing them.
But he said it was he himself who performed the act of his resurrection. The Greek is very specific. I've had 4.5 years of Greek, college and seminary. Active voice, very specific in the Greek. He's performing the action of his resurrection.
No, I'm granting that it's true that Jesus is claiming that, but the fact he's making that utterance is also explained by my explanation.
Okay, what other explanation is there? What caused Jesus to rise from the dead?
Yeah, the explanation that I'm working with is that there's aliens which have the technological aptitude or
External
capability.
critique.
No,
External critique. Invalid.
I've explained how stalking horses are actually
Now
internal.
you have to demonstrate that aliens are existing. Mathematically, that's impossible. I go into that if you want. You're shifting from internal to external critique. So, internal critique, stay with it. What's a better alternative explanation for the resurrection of Christ? Then when you can't do that, if you can't, then we'll go to external and I'll poke holes in those arguments as well.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that if we're in the context of internal critiquing an abductive argument, one way of doing that is by constructing the same accommodating an explanation or engineering an explanation that accommodates all the same facts, to which in this, at least in by the lights of an inference akin to this, what you would have to do is show what, in virtue of what, do you rationally like symmetry break between the two.
All right. If you're going to go external critique, then say you want to abandon the Christian worldview and go to an external one. Then we can do that. If you're not able to deal with the facts or the evidence presented from an internal critique, you need to demonstrate that. Because if you're going to say Jesus rose from the dead not by his own power, then you're granting he rose from the dead, then provide an internal critique consistent with Christianity and the worldview that says whatever power it was that raised him from the dead.
Maybe I don't think you're quite appreciating. Yeah, I don't think you're quite appreciating why it's not an internal critique in the context of abductive reasoning. Are you capable of maybe reproducing, like, to the best of your ability, my explanation as to how it's not? Because I've offered that explanation a couple of times, and it doesn't seem like you responded to it.
Well, you introduced the idea of a possible explanation being aliens, right?
Yeah.
Is that a rational offering that you want to get into? You want to talk about that?
What I'm saying is that in the context of your explanation, my explanation accommodates the same facts. So it's an internal critique in the context of an abductive inference, because now what you're in a position, the critique is basically levying an explanation that offers the same explanatory motivation to believe in it, right? And then it's now a critique because you would have to construct an explanation for how you make rational decision making between the two explanations.
No, I don't. And if you want to get into that, we're getting universals, transcendentals, primary, secondary substances, and the Trinitarian precondition for intelligibility. But I don't think you want to do that because that's all internal critique. But because you offered an alien explanation, you now open the door for external critique. So let me ask you, are you legitimately offering an alien civilization technology as an alternate explanation?
I am, but it's also false that the charge that this is an external critique.
Then let's examine that. Let's examine your option to see if it's rational. All right?
Okay, yeah.
So deoxyribonucleic acid consists of 4 nucleotide bond pairs, adenine, guanine, thymine, and cytosine. That means that every combination along the helix backbone has a 0.25 chance of being there. There's nothing in the sugar phosphate backbone that requires any particular order of the nucleotide bond pairs. What this means is, when you have the DNA molecule, you have a sequence of mathematical effects. The first one, you have 4 particulars: adenine, guanine, Ag and Ga, and thymine and cytosine, Ct and Tc. You have 4 possibilities. I'll explain this once because it's hard for people to grasp who haven't studied it. I have, and there's problems here, mathematically. In order to have information, it's not random assembly of bond pairs. There has to be a sender and a receiver. A virus, I forgot what the name of it is, has the smallest number of nucleotide bond pairs in a DNA sequence of something like 220,000, which means it's 0.25 to 220,000th power. If you have any idea of how small that number is, the maximum number of events in the universe, theoretically, if it's 18 billion years old, which I don't grant, but if it's 18 billion years old, then every particle in the universe, 10 to the 80th particles, which is a huge exaggeration even of that number, but they know, what they believe exists. And every particle is changing its state at the maximum rate, which is 10 to the 40th times per second. Then you have a maximum number of events of 10 to the 138th power. In the entire universe, it was 18 billion years old. We call it the universal probability bound, 10 to the 138th. Let's just round up to 150th. Okay? The maximum number of events. Functional zero, a lot of mathematicians say is 10 to the 50th. They just call it functional zero. To get a sequence of DNA nucleotide bond pairs in a particular sequence exceeds the universal probability bound. So much so that some mathematicians have calculated it as 10 to the 20,000th power. 10 to the 20,000th power. Not only do you have to have a certain sequence, you have to have a reader that matches it. RNA reads, it unzips the molecule, and then it reproduces itself. It has to have ends that stop the fraying. Then it has to have folding patterns, and the folds themselves are strategically placed that require an information it's a prescribed information in order to know where the folds go in order for information to work. It gets really complicated at this point. So in other words, the mathematical odds of life formed by chance anywhere in the universe is functionally zero. I know about Drake's equation. I laugh at it whenever I hear about it. It doesn't happen, and it cannot work that alien civilizations formed by chance anywhere in the universe because mathematics doesn't work. And you can read varying articles about this on the web that talk about the mathematical challenges of the neo-Darwinian theory of evolution, not to mention abiogenesis problems. Mathematically doesn't work. So the alien hypothesis is untennified. Doesn't work. Mathematics works against it. The evidence doesn't support it. I can talk about what aliens do because they exist. I can tell you where they come from. That's another topic.
Well, it is true that the evidence supports it, right, in the context of the abductive inference, but what I'm not understanding is, like, what exactly is the objection you're making against the aliens?
I'm showing you that your alien hypothesis doesn't work. And by the way, did you know that I've been studying them for about 40 years? Did you know that aliens teach theology? Have you heard that? Have you also heard that Christians don't get abducted? Have you heard that? Yeah, they don't get abducted. And when anybody who's
but this is like far off the point at the moment.
Well, hold on. And when aliens, they cry out to Jesus, all of a sudden the abduction ends. And the theology of the aliens teaches this. Jesus is not God. We're all divine. Reincarnation's true. Why are they interested in all this stuff? It's stuff that the evidence shows something else is going on. They're not alien creatures from another planet. It's impossible. I'm just saying, your theory of aliens as an explanation, it doesn't carry any weight to it. You have another explanation?
Well, wait, why doesn't it carry weight?
I just gave it to you. I guess you weren't listening.
Well, you understand that it accommodates the same facts, so it has the same evidence going for it that Christianity has.
Okay. At this point, I'm going to just say you didn't understand what I said. It's probably because I didn't explain it sufficiently. But mathematically speaking, it's not acceptable to say that any place in the known universe, life formed by chance. The mathematics is so far beyond that possibility, it's irrational to conclude that it occurs.
Well, we're not. To be clear, in the abductive type of reasoning we're doing, the explanans is, yours is Christianity, mine is aliens, and the explanandum, the thing to be explained by our explanations, is the datum like Jesus resurrecting and claiming to be God.
But you see, what I did was, I looked at your view, your explanation, aliens, I directly addressed it and showed problems with it. When I say the resurrection of Christ inside the Bible, you don't address it. You offered something else. You went from internal to external.
Well,
I accommodated you and analyzed your proposition, showing that it has all kinds of problems. It's not working. So I'm going to go back now. Let's do fair as fair.
But your objection
Tell me why Jesus
undercuts a premise that's not. Yeah, but the type of objection you're offering undercuts a premise that's not constitutive of my objection, right? It's like attacking abiogenesis, which is just clearly doesn't appear in the argument I'm offering, or objection.
You're the one who said, but you said aliens. That means, since you deny God's existence, that means they had to arrive into existence naturally through abiogenesis under the laws of physics.
Well, I don't grant that. No, I'm not granting you that that's true.
Are you a materialist by any chance?
No.
Oh, curious. Okay. My false assumption on you. I apologize for that. What are you then?
Well, I'm like a human. I mean, like, this is like a vague question. Like, in context to what am I?
You know what materialism is?
Yeah.
Okay, for those who don't know, it's the view that the material world is all that exists and everything that lives and operates in it does so under the laws of physics, chemistry, motion, matter, etc. And that's not your position, though, right?
No.
Okay, then your position is that something outside the universe is causal.
Well, my view doesn't really matter. We don't really have to, like, investigate or kind of consult my view, because I'm just making a type of stalking objection to the explanation you're offering and asking basically in light of what is the theistic explanation preferred, or in virtue of what rationalizes the decision making in subscribing to a given explanation.
Well, if you, like I said, internal or external, you went external, so I attacked or undermined your external evidence. You haven't undermined my internal.
No, but it's internal. One. Well, no, I've explained like a dozen times how it's internal.
How the internal evidence. Okay, show me that Jesus is not God from the internal evidence. Is that what you're trying to conclude?
No,
That's your
look,
conclusion,
stalking
right?
horse objections are internal critiques in the context of abductive reasoning, because what it does is it undercuts the accommodation performed by your explanation by engineering one that mirrors those facts, and then questions
Right.
the validity in adjudicating between explanations if we're considering evidence ceteris paribus. So nothing. So everything
Right.
else held equal, we're
Abductive.
just considering evidence. Yeah. So that's an internal critique.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's an internal critique. So then what you're saying is, by the internal critique, you're saying Jesus did not rise from the dead, or did? I just want to make sure we get that down. He did or
No,
didn't?
no, no. I'm granting the datum, and I'm saying the datum's best is well. I'm not even making that move. But what I'm saying is I can explain the same stuff.
Hey, Monkey man, for reasons to get the live to progress, man, I'm gonna need your final statement, and I'm gonna let you get the last rebuttal since you're the guest. So if you could kind of close your statement up, I'm gonna move along.
Yeah. I mean, I don't. Not to sound rude, but maybe it doesn't seem really that Matt was following a lot. I mean, being charitable, the only explanation offered against my my stalking horse was something that I can charitably interpret as a type of low priors objection, considering abiogenesis. But that is actually just unassailable, given the stalking horse doesn't actually commit to or subscribe to anything of the like. So it's not really clear that Matt had any response to what I offered. But.
Very well,
Actually,
Matt. Final statement.
Yeah, I won't get into rebuttal. I've done this so many times with atheists. I know where it leads to. It leads to he said, she said, in philosophical arguments and subpoints of ideas. I'm just trying to cut through it so the listeners can understand this is what it comes down to. He rose from the dead, claimed to be God. I've not heard any evidence or any reasoning why those premises are not consistent with our evidence and are not therefore not true. So,
Hey, Monkey, thanks for coming up on the panel. Always great to have you jump back in anytime you want.
yeah, I enjoyed the conversation too, man. Follow me. I'll follow you back. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't my main, but yeah, I'll follow you here too.